covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Up in the Air. I'm Joe Spear.
And I'm Ryan Gold. We've got a great show for you tonight with stories about the Aurora Borealis and coal power.
And we also have a feature from student meteorologist here at Penn State, Duncan Miklos, about the effects of drought and climate change. But first, here's Update in the Air. Stormy summers might become the new normal as climate change weakens the planet's temperature gradient. A study from MIT found that the temperature difference between the North Pole and the equator has been decreasing because of how fast the Arctic is melting. Scientists analyzed temperatures and humidity levels of summers from 1979 to 2017 in the Northern Hemisphere. They found that the energy in the atmosphere for extratropical cyclones had gone down by 6%, while energy for thunderstorms increased by 13%. Extratropical cyclones are large storm systems that precipitate and move air pollution. With fewer cyclones, air quality will worsen in urban areas. Thunderstorms occur on a smaller scale but can become more destructive with increased energy. Along with stronger thunderstorms, the mid-latitudes could experience longer heat waves. The results from the MIT study are an estimate of how climate change is impacting weather in the Northern Hemisphere, but scientists plan to gain a better understanding of this interaction and its impact on North America.
NASA released a spectacular image of an aurora captured in the Icelandic night sky, resembling a massive dragon unfurling its wings. The northern lights are triggered when particles from the sun collide with the Earth's atmosphere. Charged particles expelled into a solar wind that follows a changing interplanetary magnetic field until it reaches Earth's own magnetic field. The aurora captured in Iceland was unusual because there were no discernible sunspots on the sun in February, typically a precursor for auroras. Typically, yellow and green auroras are produced when particles emitted from the sun interact with oxygen, while red, violet, and blue colors occur when the particles collide with nitrogen.
Rising sea levels are damaging more than just the coastline. Small businesses and tourists are losing money in coastal cities. During what's called high tide flooding, water will rise above coastal infrastructure and flood parking lots and streets. Tourists and traffic are blocked from reaching tourist locations and shops. According to scientists at NOAA, the rate of high tide flooding days has increased by 60% compared to 20 years ago. Scientists study the flooding days of the capital city of Maryland, Annapolis. The city had seen about 4 high tide flooding days a year back in the 1960s, but in 2017, Annapolis experienced 63 flooding days. To find if tourists would return to a flooded area, researchers would use parking meters, satellites, and interviews. They found that people were not likely to return even after the floodwaters had receded. More and more coastal cities are expected to experience high tide flooding and at an increased rate. Since sea levels are projected to rise even higher, it is important to understand the impacts on people and their daily lives.
Australia's Great Barrier Reef is facing another threat. Runoff from floods that have devastated parts of Queensland have recently created large polluted plumes that are reaching the reef. Unprecedented monsoonal rains over 2 weeks left much of the northeast Queensland underwater. Almost 3,000 homes were destroyed in the city of Townsville. Much of the floodwater is flowing 35 miles into the Coral Sea and heading toward the Great Barrier Reef. These polluted plumes have the potential to kill coral and seagrass and also could cause more algae growth, which would harm the reef in the long run.
Carbon dioxide isn't the only alarming substance being produced by coal power plants. In fact, coal plants release many more toxic chemicals into the air that damage health on a global scale. A team from ETH Zurich studied the side effects of the nearly 8,000 coal plants in the world. They found that even though an area produces a lot of coal power, it doesn't necessarily feel the effects of it. China and the United States are the largest coal power producers, but India feels most of the impacts in the world. Europe contributes to global warming, but Asia feels the impact of poor air quality with their plants. A lot of the issue also has to do with wealth. Central Europe, China, and North America can import high-quality coal and have modern plants, so there are lower emissions. Eastern Europe, Russia, and India have outdated plants that burn poorer quality coal and the emissions aren't removed. The remaining global coal supplies will last for hundreds of years, and as China and India become more industrialized, the situation becomes more strained. Coal plants are also designed to last long after they are built to make a profit. To reduce the global impact of coal power, toxin-rich coal must remain in the ground, and power plants need to be renovated. The team from Zurich hopes that as the environment and health become more endangered, we will move away from coal and to natural gas, ultimately ending up with renewable energy sources.
Stonehenge has always been a mystery, but recently, a new mystery has been uncovered here. Archaeologists in the United Kingdom have located two ancient quarries that were the source for the bluestones at Stonehenge. The bluestones were smaller standing stones used to create the inner horseshoe shape and an outer ring at the giant stone monument. The latest research reveals the exact geological source of some of the stones and how they were quarried, according to a study published last week in the Journal of Antiquity. Excavations found evidence that prehistoric humans used mudstone and sandstone wedges and stone hammers more than 5,000 years ago to pry the giant stones from two quarries in far western Wales. The rocky outcrop in those two areas were made of lava from volcanic eruptions. As the lava cooled, it cracked into giant vertical pillars. While this mystery has been solved, who knows how many other secrets Stonehenge could be concealing.
Welcome back to the show. We now go to a feature from our very own Duncan Miklos about the effects of drought from climate change.
Understanding the mechanisms of the Earth's atmosphere can give us a good insight to how and when severe weather events occur. Droughts have become an increasing issue in the United States, especially in the western parts of the country.
A map courtesy of the National Integrated Drought Information System shows the severity of drought conditions in the Regional Climate Center's western region. 25% of the region is unaffected, while 20% of the region is abnormally dry. 26% is experiencing moderate drought, 18% is experiencing severe drought, 8% is experiencing extreme drought, and the last 3% is experiencing exceptional drought. Now, droughts can be enhanced by a variety of things such as El Niño and zonal indices, more specifically the Pacific North American and the North Atlantic Oscillation Indexes, or PNA and NAO, respectively. A positive phase PNA develops a strong ridge along the west coast, while a negative phase NAO creates an enhanced meridional flow that occurs as a result of a blocking high in the North Atlantic. When you get just one or a combo of both indices, unusually warm temperatures are observed out west. El Niño, on the other hand, is caused by the weakening of winds in the central Pacific, which will initiate a downdwelling of Kelvin waves and cause long Rossby waves. The Kelvin waves will travel eastward and warm the eastern Pacific, resulting in an El Niño, which leaves the eastern Pacific exceptionally warm. Comparing the Oceanic Niño Index and California's drought between 2014 and 2016, we see a strong correlation between the El Niño and the drought that has occurred in the state. Due to the warming climate, higher temperatures increase evaporative losses of water and affect the timing of peak river flows out west. Earlier peak flow trends are attributed to the decline in snowpack and snowmelt-fed streamflow and larger percentages of precipitation falling as rain instead of snow. Peak flows occurring earlier in the spring rather than the summer affect the water supply and demand for the resource. Managing reservoirs, aquifers, and other water infrastructure has become more challenging as a result. Proper mitigation strategies, such as recycling water for instance, can help fix water supplies and help lessen the severity of drought, since reservoirs such as Lake Mead, held back by the Hoover Dam itself, is at its record lowest levels since it was filled.
With Up in the Air, I'm student meteorologist Duncan Miklos.
Welcome back to the show. Well, Ryan, we had a pretty windy start to the week as we had that tight pressure gradient come in on Monday.
Oh yeah, it was so windy that I actually lost my hat. I only thought that happened in the movies, but it actually happened to me.
Well, we'll take a look at the rest of the week and even what's going to be expected for the beginning of spring break over with Kasey at the Climate Wall.
Thanks, guys. It was actually blowing me over on my way to class earlier this week, too, so I'm glad that the wind is out of the picture now. Almanac data for today, February 28th, average high of 41, the average low of 24, a record high, I wish, 72 back in 1976, one below back, set back in 1994. Temperature outlook for March 4th through the 10th. Below normal for most of the U.S. We look down into the southwest, above normal for the southernmost tips of Arizona and New Mexico, along the Pacific coast and out in the northern Rockies. Below normal expected, especially over in the northern central plains for the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, and the northwesternmost tip of Iowa. Above normal temperatures expected just in time for spring break down in Florida, from Daytona Beach all the way down to the Keys. And then below normal up here in the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Precipitation outlook once again for March 4th through the 10th. Lots of green on the screen here. Above normal for for a majority of the country. Down in the southwesternmost tip of Florida, below normal precipitation expected next week. Above normal for the Pacific coast for California. Most of Nevada into Utah and Colorado as well. And then this northernmost region of the Central Plains below normal precipitation expected. Down in the southeast along the eastern coast heading up into the mid-Atlantic states, above normal precipitation expected, and then below normal for northeastern region of the country. Drought monitor, we are still focused on that four corner regions, mostly in the northernmost tip of New Mexico, still looking at some drought over in Oregon, but good news over in Florida. This is beginning to dissipate what it seems. We have some up in South Carolina, of course none up here in the mid-Atlantic. Snow depth, Sierra Nevada mountains, still lots of snow over there, several inches of snow, as well as the northern Rockies for Idaho, Montana, and creeping its way into western Wyoming. Northern Central Plains still dealing with a good bit of snow as we head over into Pennsylvania and the mid-Atlantic states. That snow is beginning to melt. Average temperatures are starting to creep their way from freezing, so that snow will continue to melt over the next couple of days. This weekend, maybe you're heading home for spring break from Penn State. 45 above average for Saturday, but we will deal with some rain in the afternoon and evening. So if you're headed home on Saturday, you may have to deal with some rain, so maybe give yourself a couple extra minutes or hours to head out the door, so do travel with caution. We have a front moving through on Saturday. That's why we see this almost 20-degree temperature difference into Sunday, but it will be sunny. So Ryan and Joe, if you're heading home on Sunday, that's probably your best bet this weekend.
Thanks, Casey. I actually was planning on going home on Saturday, but now I'm going to wait until Sunday.
Yeah, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we will be taking a week off for spring break, so make sure to join us in 2 weeks for Up in the Air.